Hi friends, Mindy here. Welcome back to my channel. I have a little project to share with you today. I'm actually going to be creating an idea book out of a Reader's Digest condensed book. I have used these in the past to create some ephemera holders. Let me grab one so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So it's been a while since I've shared this, but I basically took out the text block of this Reader's Digest condensed book and saved the cover intact so that I could create a way to hold some of my ephemera. And this one is quite chunky, as you can tell. I need to kind of reorganize it, but I basically used that twine binding method that I love so much for projects like this because it's really versatile. You can add things in. And I used some heavier weight scrapbooking paper and created some pockets, and I have my ephemera stored in here. Just makes it going through it a little bit easier to try to find, especially when you have a bunch of printables that have a lot of labels and those kinds of things. So that's kind of how I have some of them stored here. You can see this one, I just glued some vellum down and made pockets. And this is how I have these pieces stored in here. And I even made one out of a little box. Let me see if I can grab it. To organize my vintage postage stamps, and it just, again, it just makes everything really helpful. And then today, as I was going through and pulling some ephemera and some pockets and some different things for a project that I was working on, I came across something in my stash that I barely remember making. And so I want to be able to have an idea book where I can put put one of those items in there along with credit to the original creator if I have it, or even step-by-step, instructions for how to recreate it. Because sometimes I just forget. There's so many amazing ideas out there. People are so creative. And so, and then it's really important to me whenever I'm using somebody else's idea to be able to, give them credit. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to start with gutting this book and just, but instead of using scrapbooking paper today, I'm actually going to use some vintage book pages. And these are ones that have just been in my stash for quite some time. And they may seem like an odd choice, but these are from some art print type books. And I'm not concerned with like the imagery necessarily that's on here, because it's going to get covered up if I'm gluing pockets or gluing something in here. You're not going to be able to see it. What I was concerned about is the weight of the paper. So I want it to be heavy enough that it can hold pockets and just different things. And then if I want to clip something to it, with instructions or whatever, I want to be able to do that. And I want to have this twine binding so that I can add papers in, or if down the road something should tear out or whatever, I can always just add another one in, or add pages, however I want to do it. So I just have pulled a bunch that I've just had in my stash forever. Some they're just art prints. There's no real rhyme or reason. Some of them I liked the coloring on them or whatever, but again, they're going to get covered up a lot anyway. And you can see these are obviously bigger than what I'm going to need, so I'll be trimming them down too. But these are also pages that I know that I won't necessarily use in any of my personal journals that I create. Maybe I might use this one because this is beautiful. Actually, I'm going to keep that one out. But like this guy, I just don't ever see myself using this page in one of my journals. So if I put it into this journal, then it's still, I'm still using it. So I'm going to pull that one out too. And then some of these are very, like historical artwork type situations. But so this is just kind of an idea. I have some Norman Rockwell's in here, and just some different things that I think will be good, but mostly for the weight of the paper. It's going to be something that I know is going to be sturdy enough that I can clip things to, and etc. So I have just a stack of these. I don't know which ones I'll end up putting in here, but for right now, that's kind of the idea. But I thought I would just walk you through how I pull a text block from this book so that I can repurpose it. And then I will take this text block and I will end up using it for like a glue book or master boards or all kinds of things. So I don't ever throw out these text blocks. I do save them. Let me see, I have one here. You can kind of see this is from an old one where I've used this as a glue book, and then as it gets gluey, I pull the page out. I actually turn those into pockets that I can use down the road. So I really am trying to, use up all of the things and all of the pieces and parts. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. And I just thought I would take you along for the ride. So I'm going to put you on fast forward and get started. So most of the time, pulling out a text block is not all that difficult. If you kind of pull the cover back on itself, you kind of hear it start to separate a little bit. It actually sounds like it's cracking. And usually one side opens up just a little bit easier than the other. So in this instance, the front side has started to pull away just a little bit better. And so I'm going to take my craft knife and cut this down just all the way straight down. I'm working on a self-healing mat, by the way, so protect your service. And then as I was doing this, I accidentally nicked that spine, which is not what I wanted to do at all. I had thought about even just redoing it, but I really wanted to use this book, so I'm just going to go ahead and finish pulling the text block now. Usually in older books, especially antique type books, the spine has already started pulling away from the text block, and so it makes that process even a little bit easier. This is a book from the 90s. This was more recent Reader's Digest condensed books than some of the other ones that I have. And so I just was not being careful enough, and I slit that the spine piece, which I was kind of frustrated with myself. You can see it right there. Oh, that gash. But I'm just going to go ahead and clean up the edges of this so I can fix this. Now, initially I thought if I can kind of maybe do a little band-aid fix here, I'm going to use some gaffer tape. This, you could also use bookbinder's tape, very similar. This is just a little bit of a cheaper price point. And it's just a flexible, very strong, sticky tape. And so it's like cloth. And I'm just going to cut a section kind of wide enough to cover that little area where that slit is, because originally I had intended on adding new end papers on the inside of this book. And so I just was going to kind of use this as a placeholder to hold to repair that cut that I made. But when I flip it to the outside, you can still sort of see where the cut is. And I'm afraid things are going to get, caught on it, or it's just going to experience too much wear and tear. So I'm going to have to kind of change my plan here and pivot just a bit. So I'm pulling out another roll of gaffer tape. This one is just in white, and I'm going to cover my entire spine. Now, my other Reader's Digest condensed books that I have are the older ones that have the beautiful covers, and this one is just a solid cover. It's still beautiful, but I'm not as upset about having to cover, I guess, the spine on this one. So I was just starting on the middle section and wrapping this all the way around, trying to keep everything straight-ish, and then I'll wrap it back around to the middle and trim this off. And again, it's very sticky tape, but sometimes you can actually reposition it. Just kind of depends on the book itself that you're gluing this down to. And then I'm just going to burnish this down really, really well with my bone folder, just to make sure, especially because of the shape of the spine, I want to make sure that it's, tucked nicely in there. You still can kind of see some of the wording from the spine, but by the time I get the actual binding in there, like the threads for the binding, you won't really notice it at all. And I had intended to change the end papers in this inside, but since I added that tape and it's got the white with that kind of marbly purple on the inside, I decided to just go ahead and leave it. So I'm just going to go ahead and use some crochet thread is basically what this is. I found this at a thrift store forever ago, and it was super cheap, and this thing is going to last me forever. But and I'm just going to do this twine binding. So I've shown this multiple times on my channel. It's one of my favorite ways to do journals that I want to be very versatile, where I can have a lot of flexibility for adding in and pulling out pages. And so you basically start with one end on the outside, cover, and then you wrap it however many times you want to. In this instance, I wrapped it 10 times, so I have room for 10 signatures in here. And then from the bottom piece, you leave a really long section from there as well. So you have one coming from the top and then one coming from the bottom. And then you're going to take those two pieces and cross them over the top of all of those threads, which you're going to see me do here in just one second. And I'm trying to make sure everything is nice and straight as well. You can see, so I'm crossing that one, and then the one that's on the left side, I'm going to tuck underneath now all of those threads, and then I will tie those two pieces in a knot. And you can move this, so I always kind of keep mine in the top third, but you could certainly do it in the, you know, the middle or the bottom or wherever. And then I just tie a nice knot in that before I will go back and tie a bow. And then I'm going to now move all of these threads so that they're, you know, roughly the same distance apart, but they move around, so it's not really an issue. But I just want to make sure none of them are crossed over one another. And then on the outside here this is where I will tie that bow. And so again, I have space enough for 10 signatures, but I have to be very mindful of the fact that this journal is going to get very chunky and pretty quickly because of all of the extra layers of things that I'm going to be adding in here. So I'm going to now cut down my papers to fit in this book. So I'm just kind of measuring it, and I ended up with a page that was basically 10 inches by about 7¼ was about a good size for this. The two keep it so that, you know, the pages are still kind of protected by the cover, not too close to the edge or whatever. It just gave me a little bit of room. And so I'm going to go through here and trim down all the pages. You don't need to see me do all of this. You've seen people cut paper before, but those end up being kind of the measurements that I went with. And some of these I did try to, you know, if I was going to be trimming down a lot, I tried to trim, you know, like mostly white space or something like that, just so that I could keep the most interest from the pages that I was using as possible. But I did just go through here. I'm just re-measuring because I couldn't remember. And I probably could have added maybe a little bit of width on here, but I ended up right around 10 inches, which worked fine. And then, but you know, you can do this with any size book. You don't have to necessarily do this with a Reader's Digest condensed book. But then this is how that page or signature will slide into that binding system. And so it's going to be perfect. I'm going to go ahead and cut all of that and add all of them in. And now I'm going to do a flip through so you can kind of see how we ended up. So I have, like I said, I have 20 pages in here. I have 2 pages per signature. And I know that this is going to get filled up really quickly because I'm going to be adding in pockets and just page ideas and those kinds of things in here. But I tried to alternate between some of the black and white pages I had and some of the color. And this still just gives me the opportunity to be able to see all of the things. And so like that, for instance, this pocket that I have right here is something, it's double-sided, and I don't want to forget that it's double-sided. So if I was to glue this into my journal, I would forget that the backside had a pocket on it as well. So I will likely just kind of fold it over the edge of a page and I will clip it in, and then I can include a page that has some information about, you know, an original creator if there is one, or like directions, the size of it, and those kinds of things, which is what will get glued into the actual pages of this journal itself. And you can just kind of see there's no rhyme or reason to how I put these in here, even other than I did try to sort of alternate, but a lot of it's going to get covered up as I'm adding in those pockets and things. So let me know if down the road you would like to see kind of how this journal ends up looking once I have all of the ideas sort of tucked and stored away in here. It's just a good way to be able to kind of go back and remember. And sometimes, I don't know if everybody else does this, but sometimes I just get stuck in a rut when I am, you know, creating, and I create the same things over and over and over again. And so having a resource that I can kind of come back to and flip through and really just get some ideas when I'm just feeling maybe like not so creative, it's just going to be a good help for me to have. So if you liked this video, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Be sure to check out my website, which is called chosencrafting.com, as well as my Facebook group, and all my affiliate links. All that information is in the description. And until next time, bye.